players, you can do that too. And so these island expeditions can create an all-new type of PvPvE gameplay where you are completing objectives, racing against enemy players to do so, and killing each other where it makes sense. All right, so on the other end of the spectrum, from island expeditions are small-scale skirmish in the New World. Warfronts tell the story of large-scale battles back on the home front. This is the battle for Azeroth between the Alliance and the Horde. This is what all the resources are for. This is what the alliances are for. This is the fight that we need to win. And what does large-scale battle mean for us? Well, we have so much fantasy to draw upon here, going all the way back to the real-time strategy roots of the franchise, going back to Warcraft 2, going back to Warcraft 3. Let me give you this hypothetical fact pattern. You are the commander of an Alliance expeditionary force tasked with landing in enemy-controlled lands. Secure an outpost, build it up, secure supply lines, protect them,
I've set up my stream,
build
right?
up your base, upgrade your buildings, train troops, and then lead them out into enemy territory, eventually sieging and overwhelming the enemy fortification and crushing them. I just described about 2/3 of all Warcraft campaign maps right there.
Good question.
Well, this is World of Warcraft, and let's put you in that experience. This isn't an RTS. This is you as a champion on the front lines, playing out that fantasy, living that experience. What does this mean? A Warfront is a 20-player cooperative raid as you join Alliance force, as you join a Horde force, to build up a base and take on a vast enemy entrenched, led by a powerful commander. And what you will do along the way is gather resources, build structures, decide whether you want a barracks or a stables collectively, upgrade those things, train troops, upgrade your troops, and lead those troops into battle to claim ultimate victory on behalf of your faction. Now, both Islands and Warfronts, I've just given you a quick high-level overview, but again, at 4 p.m., right back here in our gameplay and systems deep dive, we'll be talking a lot more about both of these features.
I just heard myself again.
Yeah, I don't, like, how can you mute your mic? You'd have to, like, split the sound and not broadcast Teams.
Now, the last couple of features I've talked about are primarily PvE features against large NPC armies. Battle for Azeroth is also going to be a great expansion for those of you who love PvP. So first off, we're adding a couple new arenas. We have a new arena coming in Kultiris, a new arena in Zandalar, capturing the aesthetics of those places, new environments within which you can pit your skills against one another. We also have a new battleground coming called the Seething Shore. Now, this battleground is located just off the coast of Silithus. For some reason, the Alliance and the Horde have decided that this barren stretch of desert is worth fighting over. I don't know why. There's nothing interesting going on in Silithus. But for some crazy reason, commanders of both factions decided to go fight over it. Weird. But as it turns out, for some reason, there's a lot of azurite that seems to be bubbling to the surface in Silithus, and this becomes a natural point of contention. So the way this plays out is as a new type of battleground that has dynamic control points. So imagine Arathi Basin if there were multiple possible flag locations, and you never knew exactly where the control point was going to spawn. You had to adapt. You had to keep on the move. Here's a quick look at the layout from an internal sketch of this battleground. Each of those crystal nodes you see on the map is a potential point where an azurite fusion could occur. I think there's about 3 active at a given time. So as you're skirmishing over control of one, you might see the one has popped up on the other side of the map. You have to make a choice between how many people you're going to keep to try to contest the current one versus who's going to break off and try to claim the new one. Very fast-paced action, keep you on your toes. We're really excited about this. And it's actually part of the story that we're telling. It's part of the events that will lead up to Battle for Azeroth. So as such, we also want to get this in your hands a bit before Battle for Azeroth itself. So keep an eye on the PTR, and we want to get this coming your way soon. We're also going to continue to expand upon successful systems like the PvP brawls. We want to keep adding new ones. All of those things are here to stay. But that's instance PvP. I know there are many of you for whom world PvP is what you're all about. Whether it was 13 years ago, ganking noobs in Stranglethorn Vale, making people switch to their mains to come get you, or just being a terror of World Quest areas today, it's the thing that you love. And you might feel like it hasn't been treated with the respect it deserves over the years. We agree. In a lot of ways, our PvP rule set for World PvP hasn't really changed since 2005. I guess we got rid of dishonorable kills about 10 years ago. So we should bring them back. No. But the way in which you play the game has changed tremendously. Over the years, server transfers opened up. People want to move around to play with their friends, to find new guilds. As it turns out, most people prefer to transfer to servers where their faction is already dominant, leading to more and more lopsided populations. Ease of travel around the world and power scaling have changed significantly. You could be trying to fight someone, and they could, CC you, get away, mount up, fly away. You never see them again. And much more recently, we have cross-realm gameplay. You might join a World Quest group in the pre-made group finder, and even though you're on a PvP server, you could join the group and suddenly find that you're surrounded by orange names because you just landed on a PvE realm, or vice versa. In a lot of ways, our rule set doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense for the way the game is right now and how people play the game. That's something we'd like to re-examine. And so I think there's two audiences that we're thinking of as we approach these changes. First off, there are likely many of you in the audience and watching at home who play on PvP servers today, but it's not really the gameplay you're looking for. You're there because that's where your friends want it to be. That's where you ended up many years ago. You don't want to pay money for a server transfer. You don't want to leave your friends to change that. But you might be actually sitting here hearing about and thinking about this expansion we're talking about, where you'll be venturing into enemy-controlled lands with a bit of trepidation, thinking, that sounds actually pretty frustrating. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those of you who love World PvP and feel like, exactly, and feel like that's part of what makes World of Warcraft, and you want more of it. You want it to be more balanced, you want it to be more interesting, and you want it to occur more organically. We agree. So the core of the changes we're looking at are actually, first and foremost, getting rid of this arbitrary division between PvP and PvE server rule sets, where you're locked in permanently on a given server, and unless you transfer and leave your friends, you can't change that. We want to make this an individual toggle, unifying our servers into a single rule set. So when you are in Stormwind, you're in Orgrimmar, you're in Dalaran, you can choose whether you want to PvP flag, you want to opt into PvP, or not. And if you do, when you venture out into the world, you'll basically be on a PvP server, PvP rule set, with other people who've also opted into that gameplay. And if you don't want to, don't. What this lets us do, on the one hand, people who feel trapped on PvP servers now have an easy way out. On the other hand, we have a foundation upon which we can build a new generation of World PvP content. In the past, whenever internally we would think about and debate ideas for really cool World PvP stuff, it always ran into this roadblock of, well, what does that mean if you're on a PvE server? Does that just mean that half of the players of our game can't access that content meaningfully? And that always felt like a really large stumbling block. We could create all new content, whether it's bounty hunting quests or quests that send you to assassinate high-value targets in enemy territory, and encourage some of that organic conflict and reward it in a way that we never could before. Now, also, we realize you may be hearing this and thinking, well, why would I ever activate PvP just to go out and do my world quests? That feel like this is probably just going to be a bunch of people deathmatching across our zones, turning them into giant arenas. And that's not actually what World PvP is about, right? World PvP is that organic encounter that occurs. And so, in order to offset that inefficiency, we do want to offer some bonuses to something like experience gain, reputation gain, where it makes sense for questing with PvP mode enabled. The point of this is not to make this feel like the right or the only way to play if you don't like PvP, but rather to make it feel like it's worth your time if you do. Play the way you want to play. We'll have a lot more to talk about this in the future, but the aim of these changes is to build a foundation upon which we can make World PvP great again. So changing gears a bit, dungeons. So we have 10 dungeons coming your way in Battle for Azeroth. Like zones, each faction will have separate level-up dungeons associated with your continent, 4 in Kultiras, 4 in Zandalar, and then all 10 open up when you hit max level, and you gain some new motivations to go into some of those places. On the system side, Mythic Keystones, also here to stay. We want to provide better support for that system. We'll be designing more of our dungeons with full knowledge of what this system entails. We also want to provide UI improvements, so it's easier to form and find Mythic Keystone groups. If you're just looking for a 10, but you don't care what map it is, you should be able to search for that much more easily. Things like that. But refinements, just building upon a system that we've heard fantastic feedback from the community about. We love this as really making dungeons a continued part of the endgame. Let's talk about some specific dungeons. First off, Freehold. Freehold is located in Tiragard Sound. This is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. It is full of brigands and outlaws and cut purses, and you're going to have to go through this place if you want to put a stop to some of the problems that Kultiras is facing. Let's take a look at a video of Freehold. Yeah, that was an ogre with a shark for its arm, but OK. On the other continent, we have a dungeon known as Atal Dazar. This is a tomb of ancient Zandalari kings located in the zone of Zuldazar. But there are dark forces present here. Trolls conducting horrible rituals, dinosaurs, undead dinosaurs, and all sorts of other threats. Let's take a look at a video for this dungeon. So both of those dungeons are also fully playable here on the show floor today for a total of 4 separate experiences: Alliance questing, Horde questing, Alliance dungeon, Horde dungeon. Grab 4 friends, make some new ones, check out the dungeons. We can't wait to hear your feedback. So other dungeons, as I mentioned, there's 10. I'm not going to talk about these in great detail, but these are scattered across the new lands. Special call out to the Shrine of the Storm. This is a dungeon in Stormsong Valley. If you want to see a bit more behind the scenes boss design for this dungeon, check out our boss design panel tomorrow afternoon on the Legendary stage, and you can see our encounter team design out one of the bosses in this dungeon live. The very bottom of this list is also a place that's not in Kultiras and not in Zandalar, Kazan. Now, this is a favorite location of ours we've wanted to revisit for some time. Knowing goblins, if you do, you might not be surprised to hear that once word spread of this substance known as azurite, they immediately set out to dig and dig and dig and see what they could uncover to control it for themselves. And who knows what else they found in the process. Should be a fun trip. Now, moving on to raids. Quickly here, since I don't want to go in too much detail into the nature of this raid, because it's hard to do without tremendously spoiling pretty much the whole story of Zandalar, and I don't want to deprive anybody of the experience of learning what happens as intended through data mine broadcast text. But this raid is the Titan facility Alex mentioned earlier, located in Nazmir, known as Uldir Halls of Control. It was once a Titan, effectively a laboratory, a quarantine facility, where they aimed to analyze and try to understand the nature of their ancient enemy, the old gods. That didn't go so well. This place has been shut down, sealed away for thousands of years until now. And we'll have to go in there to face off against the source of Zandalar's corruption. Inside, we'll see a new spin on some Titan architecture, as you see in a concept from one of our dungeon artists here. We'll be facing off against all manner of delightfully slimy foes. This little tiny person, sorry, tank. At least doesn't have ankles for you to look at. You'll be looking at a belly. Now, this is the first raid. This is the High Mall. This is the Emerald Nightmare of this expansion. Now, following this, and I'm going to say even less about this raid, it might have occurred to you when Alex was up here earlier talking about the dark threats from the sea plaguing Kultiris. Well, we know a couple of dark threats from the sea, don't we? There are some that we have heard a lot from in Legion. You know, some Tidestone-related stuff. And so, yes, before all is said and done in Battle for Azeroth, we'll be facing off Queen Ashara against Queen Ashara. So lots more story to tell on that front. And yes. And so the stage is set for the Battle for Azeroth. We have Crimson Red continent in the west, Royal Blue in the east, and a vast expanse of ocean in between. We, as champions of the Alliance and the Horde, will set out to explore islands, battle on warfronts, and uncover mysteries that threaten to undermine the very world beneath our feet. Because at the end of the day, does it matter who wins the Battle for Azeroth if there's nothing left for the victor to claim? So thank you so much for coming out. Thank you so much for joining us for the beginning of this adventure. It's always a joy. We have so much more information to share over the course of the afternoon here at BlizzCon, starting in just a few hours right back here on this stage. And if you have any questions about what you've heard, submit those questions up at the Darkmoon Fair or online for our Q&A tomorrow afternoon, focused exclusively on Battle for Azeroth content and what lies ahead. Also check out our art panel and Legendary stage tomorrow, and so much more. Thank you so, so much. Welcome to BlizzCon. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you for attending the World of Warcraft What's Next panel. Up next, the Hearthstone What's Next panel.
Channel switched. Microphone activated.
You what?
What are you hyped for?
Why?
I'm actually so bored of this fucking Delta raid. Like, I don't even want to be here anymore. All you get is DPS whores who, like, they all hate me because I'm a rogue and I don't bring anything.
Okay.
Like, Jadis is playing as some fucking hunter now. And then there's a ret, there's a feral, there's a warrior. I just don't, like, I moved myself out of group 2 right now because I see BA with the toxicity of fucking Shadis. I need Bloodlust. Just give me your Bloodlust. I'm the best DPS. He fucking rips Hydros and shit like that. Retard. Time to go kill the last boss. Doesn't even need to kill it. Just get past 35%.
Oh, dude, Tom is giving you instead of himself. Oh no, he's moving data out.